You wake up with a strange taste in your mouth, bitter, resinous, like pine sap mixed with smoke. You spit. A small black lump lands on the cave floor. You've been chewing it all night. This is your toothbrush. And somehow, against everything you've been told about ancient people being filthy, brutish, and disease-ridden, it works. For roughly 99% of human history, this was your version of dental hygiene. No fluoride, no floss, no dentist. Just a piece of tree resin you'd been chewing for weeks. And when archaeologists pull skulls out of the ground 10,000 years later, your teeth will be nearly free of cavities. How is that possible in 2019? A team led by Hannes Skroder at the University of Copenhagen analyzed a piece of chewed birch tar from a site called Siltholm in southern Denmark. It was 700 years old. Pressed into the tar were tooth marks from a young woman. Inside it, her daw. And the bacteria from her mouth. Birch tar, it turns out, contains natural antiseptics. Compounds that kill the bacteria that cause cavities. She wasn't chewing gum. She was disinfecting her mouth. Quietly. Every day. With a piece of tree. And she was just getting started. Here's the strange truth nobody talks about. The story you've been told, that ancient humans were dirty, smelly, and oblivious, is almost entirely wrong. Your ancestors were obsessed with cleanliness. They just achieved it in ways that would make you absolutely lose your mind. Let's start with the bathroom situation, at a site called Skara Brae, off the northern coast of Scotland. Archaeologists have been excavating a 5,000-year-old Neolithic village since the 1850s, inside the small stone houses. Built before the pyramids, there are recesses in the walls. Drains. Channels that lead out of the homes and into the sea. These are toilets, indoor plumbing, built into the wall, 5,000 years ago, by people you were taught to picture grunting in furs. A few hundred years later, in the city of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, nearly every single house had a private bathroom. Brick-lined, connected to a city-wide sewer system. Each home flushed its waste into covered drains that ran beneath the streets. Many modern cities still don't have this. So no, your ancestors did not just squat in the bushes. Some of them had better sanitation than London did in 1850. But what about washing? You're probably picturing a greasy hunter-gatherer who has never seen a bar of soap in his life. Here's the problem. Soap is older than you think, much older, on a clay tablet dated to around 2800 BC. Sumerian scribes in ancient Mesopotamia wrote down a recipe: animal fat, wood ash, boiled together. The resulting paste cleaned skin, removed grease, and was used to treat wounds. This is soap. Real soap. Almost 5,000 years before your grandmother bought her first bar of Dove. In ancient Egypt, your wealthy ancestors washed with a substance called natron, a naturally occurring salt scraped out of dry lake beds. Mixed with oil, then rubbed on the skin, it killed bacteria. It deodorized. It was so effective the Egyptians also used it to preserve mummies, the same thing they cleaned their armpits with. They used to mummify the dead. In Rome, you wouldn't even use soap. You'd use a curved metal scraper called a strigil. After exercising, you'd cover your skin in olive oil. Then a slave or a friend, depending on your station, would scrape the oil off your body, taking the day's sweat, dirt, and dead skin with it. The resulting goop, called gloyos, was collected and sold as medicine. Yes, they sold the dirt. The scrapings off famous athletes were considered especially valuable. There was an entire economy built on it. Now buckle in, because this is where it gets wild. Your Roman ancestors had a serious laundry problem. Wool tunics absorbed sweat, sweat smelled, and their best, most effective detergent was something every single person had an unlimited supply: urine. Public urinals were placed at street corners. Passers-by would pee into them. Laundry workers called fullones would collect the urine, dilute it with water, and stomp on dirty clothes in vats of it. Why? Because urine, as it ages, releases ammonia. Ammonia is one of the most powerful natural cleaners on Earth. It dissolves grease. It whitens fabric. It works. The Emperor Vespasian taxed it when his son complained that taxing urine was beneath the family's dignity. Vespasian held up a coin and delivered the famous line, "Money does not smell," but it gets worse, much worse. In the Roman public toilets, which were lined up in long benches with holes carved over running water. You didn't have toilet paper. What you had was a tersorium, a wooden stick with a sea sponge tied to the end. You'd reach between your legs, wipe, then rinse the sponge in a small channel of water in front of you. Then you'd put it back in the communal pot for the next person. Researchers like Piers Mitchell, a paleoparasitologist at the University of Cambridge, have spent decades digging through ancient latrines, analyzing what people left behind. His work shows the Romans, despite their plumbing, their bathhouses, and their obsession with washing, actually had more intestinal parasites than the Iron Age societies they conquered. Why? The shared sponge, the fertilizer made from human waste, the fish sauce called garum that fermented in open vats for months. Sometimes your hygiene is only as clean as the people sharing it with you. Let me reconstruct a day for you. You're a hunter-gatherer in what is now southern France. It's 30,000 years ago. You wake up next to a low fire. Your hair smells like smoke. That's not an accident. Smoke kills lice. Your ancestors figured this out long before they could write. You walk to a small stream. You rinse your face with cold water. You take a small twig, frayed at one end from chewing, and scrub your teeth with it. Modern researchers call these chew sticks. The same kind, made from the Salvadora persica tree, are still used across Africa and the Middle East today. Studies in modern dental journals show they are nearly as effective as a plastic toothbrush. In some categories, more effective. You rub a handful of crushed herbs under your arms. Lavender, rosemary, mint. These are not just for smell. They contain antimicrobial oils that kill the bacteria that cause body odor in the first place. You did not have deodorant. You had pharmacology. You comb out your hair with a fine, toothed comb carved from bone. Lice combs identical to modern ones have been found at sites all over the ancient world. Some are 10,000 years old. The teeth are spaced exactly the way modern lice combs are, because lice have not changed, and neither has the solution. If your breath was bad, you chewed a small pellet of myrrh, frankincense, and honey. The ancient Egyptians shaped these into pills. They are, almost word for word, the first breath mints in human history, from roughly 1500 BC. This is not a savage. This is a person taking care of her body with the materials around her, using methods that took thousands of years to refine. Now here's the twist. You've been told modernity made you cleaner. And in some ways, it did. Clean water, sewage treatment, antibiotics. These things save millions of lives every year. But there's a darker side. And the science is catching up. In the early 2000s, researchers led by Erika von Muschus in Germany found that children who grew up on traditional farms had dramatically lower rates of asthma and allergies than children raised in sterile urban homes. This led to what's now called the hygiene hypothesis. Your immune system, it turns out, was built over hundreds of thousands of years to encounter dirt, microbes, parasites, a little bit of everything. When you remove all of it, when you scrub, sanitize, and sterilize every surface you touch, your immune system has nothing to train on. So it overreacts. It attacks pollen. It attacks peanuts. It attacks your own body. Studies of the Hadza people, hunter-gatherers still living today in Tanzania, show their gut microbiomes are roughly twice as diverse as the average Americans. They have almost zero autoimmune disease, almost zero allergies. Almost zero of the everyday discomforts you've been told are just part of being alive. Your ancient ancestors were not dirty. They were balanced. They lived in a constant, low-level exchange with the bacteria of the world around them. And their bodies were calibrated for it. Your body still is. You evolved to be exposed. Think about that the next time you reach for the antibacterial gel. The craziest hygiene methods used by ancient humans were not crazy because they were primitive. They were crazy because they were specific. They were the result of tens of thousands of small experiments, passed down through generations, refined into rituals that actually worked. Chewing tar to disinfect your mouth, scraping oil off your skin with a curved blade, stomping clothes in fermented urine because the chemistry, somehow, was correct. Combing lice from your hair with a tool identical to the one a pharmacist sells today. You think of cleanliness as a product, something you buy, something you spray. Your ancestors thought of it as a practice, something you did, something you understood, and maybe somewhere between the antibacterial wipe and the birch tar, there's a lesson hiding in plain sight. That your body was not designed for sterility. It was designed for relationship with dirt, with bacteria, with the slow, patient knowledge of people who came before you. You wake up with a strange taste in your mouth. But now you know what it is. It is history, and it is still keeping you alive.